Oh, hey! Welcome back to the Lego room, everybody. As you can tell, things look different in here. I decided to move forward with my plan to do a makeover of this room, and we're right in the middle of that. So let's rewind the clock a little bit so I can show you just how we got here, and more importantly, where we're going. Welcome back to Project 99 Base Plates. Welcome back to a mostly empty Lego room. As you can see, we've temporarily stored all the Lego elsewhere, and that's because I want to give this room a paint over. Now, let me explain the thinking here a little bit. So, as you will have noticed, in the previous episodes, we've shot footage of some of our builds against both very bright and very dark backgrounds, and I've personally found that in practice it's a lot easier to get the focus to be on the builds when the background isn't as distracting, and usually that means when the background isn't as bright. Now, all the walls and the ceiling here are all bright white, and I want to get rid of that. So what I want to do is use the color of the curtains as sort of like a baseline, and effectively think of a treatment that kind of extrapolates from that color outward. And what that will do is generally bring the brightness of this whole room down pretty significantly. Now, secondarily, I would love to hint at the presence of a landscape beyond just what's on the table here, but I can't stress this enough. I want that to not be distracting. I really don't want the focus to ever go there. I always want eyeballs on the Lego and not much else. So it really can't be something that draws your attention way too much. So first order of business is to cook up a design that visualizes what that looks like, right? I've already done that, let's go take a look. All right, here's an old photo of the Lego room. I've used this as a template to sketch on top of. And what I have in mind is this. So what we're looking at is a very heavily abstracted, kind of like faceted mountain landscape. And in some ways, it's actually somewhat reminiscent of what my recollection is of old Lego boxes where the backgrounds would also be very aggressively abstracted. I want the same thing to happen here. Like I mentioned, we can never get into a space where the foreground becomes less important than the background. And this is why I'm going to be really particular about making sure the lines here of the shapes in the background are really sharp so that we maintain that level of obvious abstraction. Compositionally, we frame it around what the future Lego city is going to look like. So eventually, this part of the city is going to be much taller, so the mountain range will kind of disappear behind that part of the Lego city. In terms of colors, I made a breakdown here of all the different shades of blue that I think I'm going to need. However, figuring out precisely which ones to order is going to be a matter of trial and error. So let's head back to the Lego room and try out a bunch of different colors on the walls. Going from a computer screen to an analog wall with paint on it is always a little bit of an unpredictable process. And so for me to understand which colors I actually want to be using, I've got some paint samples here. And what we need to do first is get some of these on the wall so we can see which ones work and which ones we need to order a lot more paint of. So time for a change of clothes, and let's get this on the wall. Go, 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 go. It's the next day and we've got all our samples on the wall, and at this point we're able to establish which colors we're going to move forward with. We're going to go with this color. I like it because it's a little bit more saturated. So from here on out, it's really just a matter of filling out all the empty spaces and making sure that we get all our lines straight. Let's get to that. I do want to change a little bit of the ridge line here. The peak over there is fighting for prominence a little bit too much with this one, so I want to lower that a little bit. Go, 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 go. All right, painting is done. Now, there's a couple things that remain. One of those is to put a cat bed in this room because someone insists on always having a place to sit or sleep in this room whenever I'm here. And so it's about time we get this guy a bed. Very last item on the list, and that is to cover up these unsightly edges of the table. I got some boards that I've cut to size. I'm gonna give those a quick paint job as well, and then we're done. And that's it. Room makeover complete, and I could not be happier with the end result. The room feels totally different to be in now. It's a completely different atmosphere. It's super inspiring. It's important because, you know, I don't just display the city here, I also do all the designing and building here, so I spend a fair amount of time in this room. For those of you who watched episode 3, you might remember that we ended on somewhat of a conundrum. In the next episode, we're gonna pick right up where we left off. 2026 is gonna be a really big year for this project. So once again, thank you, and I will see you all in the next episode of Project 99 Base Plates.